Hello architects of tomorrow. The following video is the recording of the AI in the landscape design process webinar that I hosted on the 14th of January 2025. I hope you find it useful. The links to the resources I mentioned in the webinar are available in the video description. Okay, so the topic of today's webinar is AI in the landscape design process. So we are going to focus specifically how we can use these applications, especially generative AI applications, in the landscape design process. I feel like there is often material and tools developed specifically for architects, but landscape architects often left behind and forgotten. I would like to say a few words about myself before we start talking about the webinar's topic. Some of you know me personally, and I with some of you, but I'm originally educated as a landscape architect and urban designer. I have education and professional experience from 4 countries. I studied in Hungary, Sweden, and Denmark, and I worked in Spain, Denmark, and Sweden. And right now I work in my own company, Luminarkis in Sweden, based in Gothenburg, but I work entirely online, so it's possible to collaborate with me from everywhere, basically. And I had a focus on digital tools from the very beginning of my studies. So when this generative AI boom, what they also call the AI spring, started 2.5 years ago, I very early started experimenting with different tools. How can we apply them in landscape architecture and urban planning? I tried over 100 tools. Of course, not all of them turned out to be relevant for our field, but there were some that were very useful. There were some that were just fun to use, and of course, there were some irrelevant ones. And I want to deliver the best generative AI tools to architects and planners. And right now I work with clients from Sweden, Denmark, Hungary, and Iceland. And I forgot to mention, but you can connect with me on LinkedIn through this QR code. My profile is set to creator mode, but please send a connection request. I think it's much nicer if we connect and we both see each other's content and can interact with it. And as I mentioned before, my company is called Luminarkis, and it's focused on AI implementation for architects and planners. You can also use the QR code to get to my website and learn more about how do we work. The agenda of today's webinar is quite straightforward, but I still would like to give you kind of an outline. What are we going to talk about? We are going to talk about very briefly the learning objectives of this session, the challenges that landscape architects face, where AI can align with our challenges. Then we will have a look into how AI actually can be used in the design process in landscape architecture. And at the end, we will have some time for a discussion, Q&A session. So as I mentioned before, the focus will be on AI in the landscape design process. So we will mostly talk about landscape architecture and a bit urban planning. And this webinar is going to give you an overview. You can call it a buffet of use cases. We are not going to go super deep into a specific use case and look into the prompting and how the different applications are applied and synergized with each other. We are going to rather have a general overview and hopefully get a general understanding how these applications can be useful for us. And hopefully this will tweak your interest and also give you this overview how we can use this technology in our field. And we will also talk a little bit about how can you continue your AI journey, what can be the next step in this process. So You might have not thought about it like that, but you actually been using AI tools or tools with AI features for quite a while. Some applications that we often use in our field, like Google Search, City Engine, or Mapillary, had AI features applied in them for many years by now. But the generative AI boom, when AI kind of took over public talk, public discussion, and media, started in 2022 autumn, when the first version of ChatGPT was released to the public. Other chatbots, image generators, video generators, visualization tools, generative design tools followed ChatGPT. And even though quite a lot of time has passed since then, and there have been huge advancements in this field, there has not been a specific tool developed for landscape architects. There are some smaller applications. I also created a custom GPT that's specifically developed for landscape architects, but there is no generative design tool for landscape architects. Unlike for architects and urban planners who already have some generative design tools available. So what we can do is what we usually do. We can use architects' tools for our purposes. And also, I think actually what we need to underline is generalist applications. By that I mean chatbots and image generators that are not specifically developed for any profession, but they are more intended for a general use. These applications have the biggest potential right now within for landscape architects. And I just want to mention a few challenges that many landscape architects, including my clients, face, and where AI kind of align with these challenges and can help us in our work. You possibly experience that we often have a limited time for concept development. Many of my clients mentioned that often they go from like a very quick initial sketch straight into detailing almost. Because there is no time to try out and experiment with different designs. Visualizations can be very time and resource consuming. If you are doing it in-house, it can take a lot of time. If you are outsourcing it, it can take a lot of resources. By that, I mean money. And unfortunately, I also experienced that sometimes it can be both time and money consuming if you are working with a visualization studio where communication is not going really well. We often work together with architects and other designers, engineers, and you possibly experience that often workflow and communication inefficiencies lead to quite big delays in projects, or they can lead to a lot of double work or pointless work being executed. Data-driven design is becoming more and more important in our field as well, but processing this data can be quite resource and time-consuming. And climate change poses a threat and challenge to every possible profession on this earth, but our profession that works primarily with outdoor environments and living beings, this is an even bigger challenge. And it's very difficult to plan for the climate of the future. So these are the challenges and the difficulties that our profession faces and where AI can be our help actually. And now after we are finished with this little introduction, let's look into how this technology can help us actually in the design process. We are going to go through the steps of concept design and look into a few examples how AI can help in these different steps. Of course, there are thousands of other use cases beyond this within the design process and beyond the design process. But as I mentioned before, this webinar is intended to give you a little overview and a general understanding of the capabilities and also the limitations of these tools. If you ever worked as a junior landscape architect, you possibly spent quite a bit of time on finding the perfect reference image for a certain project. You either went on Google search and looked for images for hours, or you went on Pinterest and tried to put together a nice board. There was actually one occasion when we were working on a coastal development or shoreline development in Sweden, in a town called Alingsås, on the shore of a very large lake. And we wanted to put up hammocks in the trees. So I searched for images of hammock on a beach. And these are the images that I usually got. They were very beautiful tropical beaches in Thailand or maybe in the Philippines, but definitely not in Sweden, definitely not in Alingsås. So I tried to search for hammock on a beach in Scandinavia or Sweden, and what I got, the same type of images from the websites of Scandinavian travel agencies, or people putting up their hammocks in nature reserves when they are out in the wilderness. It's very nice. I did it several times, but not exactly what we were looking for. So I wish that back then we had image generators, because instead of looking for these images for a long time, we could have generated the perfect image within minutes, if not seconds. I created this image specifically with Midjourney with a pretty simple prompt. You don't even need, I didn't even need any kind of advanced technique to put together the prompt. And this is an image that would have been perfect for that project. Unfortunately, 4 years ago, this technology did not exist yet. But you can see that this is a very photorealistic, very nicely composed image, which can be definitely identified as a beach in Scandinavia or specifically in Sweden. And this really looks like something that you could find just outside of Gothenburg. I usually use Midjourney for image generation, and this is the tool that I usually recommend to my clients and what I share content with also. I am not affiliated with Midjourney. Unfortunately, I do not receive any commission from them for recommending them, but honestly, I think this is the best image generator available on the market, so that's why I'm using it as an example. And you can create basically any kind of reference image if you can't find the perfect one, or maybe you found the perfect one, but it's not royalty free or it's not the best resolution. So in these cases, you can also go to an image generator and generate these reference images, and you can get very beautiful photorealistic images. They are getting better and better, but by now the images, if you create images with Midjourney with the right settings, it's basically impossible to tell in most cases that it is not a real photo. You can see that here is a family tending to their allotment plot, a dog park in a forest, and this is supposed to be a Danish small town square with food trucks on it. Here you can see a mistake though. You can see that these food trucks are kind of part of the buildings. So sometimes if you look, you can find these mistakes. So it's important to check your images properly before you use them. And inspiration can come from anywhere in the design process. You possibly all know this and have experience with this. So this is not an image that you would use usually in a presentation material, but these kind of washed out muted color palettes are very popular in Scandinavia. And if you see any kind of image, you might be inspired by the color palette. You might want to use the color palette that the image is representing. And it's usually very nice if your project has a very cohesive visual identity and color palette. So you can use any type of image as a reference image if you like the style of it, and generate the reference images within Midjourney. These are exactly the same prompts that I used in the previous slide. You can see the hammock, food trucks, dog park, allotment plot. So it's the same things, but I used the previous image as a reference image. And you can regenerate already existing photos with reference, style reference as well. And you can create things out of scratch as well to have a quite cohesive visual identity throughout your project. And you can put together whole mood boards with this tool. I don't think this is how you are going to use this in most cases. I would rather say that you're going to have a blend of real photos and generated images, but there is a huge potential in the generated images. I would not recommend trying to generate a whole mood boards. You will get quite funky results from that. And we often think about ourselves as visual communicators and people who work with visual material, visual design. But actually, quite a bit of our work is still text-based or can be translated into text. And in the very early stages of concept formulation, chatbots like ChatGPT can be super useful. You can use it to identify the main characteristics of an area that can be used later on to build the identity of the area. And you can actually also use it for concept development to add elements to your projects. For example, in this example, I used it to in a fictional project in Gothenburg for a new urban development, and I asked it to identify the key characteristics of the city that can be the building blocks of the identity of the new neighborhood that we are designing. And it points out actually very relevant things like maritime heritage, cultural and creative hub, sustainability leadership. And later on, you can also ask these tools to elaborate on it, try to make it into an implementable strategy or translate it into design elements. So you can kind of have a chat with these bots about the concept and identity of a project. And within ChatGPT now we have this Canvas tool, which is a collaborative writing tool, and you can kind of formulate together in a very intuitive way. Yeah, this is just the second part of the response that I got from ChatGPT. And in the next step, when you already have kind of an idea, which direction do you want to go in, you have some references, you have a vague idea in your head, how to continue with the design, how to continue with the concept development, image generators can be our help again. There is two distinct ways that you can use them. One of them is to try to describe your idea as precisely as possible. And this way, you will get kind of a concept visualization, a very rough depiction of your idea. While if you, on purpose, give an imprecise description, a very vague description to the image generator, you can get very unexpected results that can be inspiration in the design process. I think this is very interesting and very important to point out, because when we talk about AI, we usually talk about automation, optimization, and we don't really talk about how much of a creative input and how much of a creative colleague AI can be, and help us not just in becoming more efficient and productive, but also in exploring new avenues of design and new concepts. So you can see this example. This is a relatively detailed prompt you can write, and I usually actually write much more detailed prompts than this, but this is like it's a relatively detailed prompt. You can see that there is information about the environment, the general design, shapes, vegetation, style, and the style of photography. And this way, if you include information like this, you can get kind of a concept image, a very initial concept visualization that you can use either internally to discuss your ideas or even externally to show it to a client to communicate ideas and concepts. This is not a precise visualization. I want to point that out. And as you work forward with your concept, you can use the same image within the image generators and also edit them. There is possibility for this within Midjourney, and you can also use the generative fill tool in Photoshop. It's pretty good, both of them actually. And you can easily exchange parts of the image. Like in this example, I took away these deciduous trees and put some old pine trees instead of them. And I also exchanged the paving to this boardwalk or the gravel for boardwalk. And this is a matter of a few seconds to create these changes in the images. So this can be a very fast way of trying out different ideas, material combinations, plant combinations in early stages already and visualize them. You can even do bigger changes. For example, here I converted the path into a little square. And this is also like a matter of few seconds or maybe few minutes. But within a few iterations, you can definitely achieve good results. And yeah, you can even add any kind of detail to the images. The point is what I wanted to show, that you can very fast visually develop the concept with these tools. And now I will show you how this can be a creative input in the design process. Here you can see that I used a much shorter and much vaguer prompt. And because it's much vaguer, there is much more room left for the AI for interpretation, and it will create much more diverse images. Actually, within Midjourney, you can also like put up the weirdness, which will prompt the AI to create even more unexpected images. So I just want to show a few examples how this more vague prompt can create very random images that can be an inspiration in the project. Here we have a bit more of a waterfront environment. Here it created a pocket park that almost looks like it's settled in the forest. Here we have a very nice intimate space with a very nice urban furniture. I actually would possibly take something further from this image. I really like this furniture it created and also the spatial quality that it depicts. And you can go on with this forever and get very different looking images that you can take a little part, a little approach, a material combination, a plant combination that can be an input in your design process. And I just wanted to showcase a few images that with the right prompting, you can create a really beautiful photorealistic images that have a photographic quality and also a nice atmosphere. Yesterday, I published a video about this on my LinkedIn. If you want to learn more about this technique, you can watch that video. It's like 1.5 minutes long, so it's really not long. And in the early stages of design, it can be sometimes a bit misleading to have two photorealistic images. Clients and stakeholders might feel that if you're already presenting very photorealistic material, that the design is already landed and this is how it is going to look like. So sometimes it's good to bring a bit more sketchy looking things so people feel more comfortable in drawing in it and making suggestions. So with the image generators, it's also possible to create non-photorealistic, but a bit more artistic images like this watercolor and ink drawing, this digital collage style image, or you can even use the style of Miyazaki to create a bit more artistic and free to interpret drawings and illustrations. As I mentioned before, there are quite a few generative design tools available for urban planners and architects, and these are best for optimization, although they can be although they also have some generative design features like the one that you can see on the screen. This is made with Autodesk Forma. It generates different kind of urban fabrics for the same project. But what is even more important for landscape architects is that if we use these tools together with architects and urban planners, we can run these dynamic analyses that basically creates analysis on the go. So as you update the model, it's going to update also the analysis to see how the buildings affect sunlight exposure, wind sheltering, noise sheltering, and if you work together, you can ensure that the outdoor environments have the maximum thermal comfort and the best noise filtering. So you can really ensure to create pleasant outdoor environments. Citizen involvement is becoming more and more important, and it's a very important aspect of social sustainability to actually involve the future users in the design process. And the Dutch Cycling Embassy created a tool called A Touch of Dutch. And with this tool, you can Dutchify the streets or any kind of public spaces, which means that you can create a vision of it in a more pedestrian, bike-friendly, and green way. This is not a design tool, but I still think it's very powerful because it can help citizens understand what is the potential that lies in our public spaces. What else can we use these vast areas instead of car parking and roads? So I, for example, used it in a street very close to us. And as you can see, this is not something that you can directly implement, but this is definitely a conversation starter and can help people see our public spaces in a different light from a different perspective. There are also other tools that help with citizen involvement. There is also one called Urbanist AI. They work quite closely with the municipalities usually. But you don't even necessarily need one more tool to involve citizens in this process even more. But you can use, again, image generators or the generative tools within Photoshop. And with these tools, you can create common vision images with the local citizens. And this is very powerful because even people who don't have a design education are not comfortable with drawing or sketching, don't really know how to use our tools. With text prompting and generating images like this, they get the opportunity to express themselves in our visual language, which can really make our communication easier and more efficient. And in this process, ChatGPT and other LLM-based chatbots can be quite helpful as well. You can craft surveys with these tools very easily. But the best thing is that you can also analyze the results that you get from surveys. So you can find certain instances of data, or you can draw conclusions, create graphs, diagrams. I know that it's also possible in Excel and Google Sheets, but if you don't know how to use the formulas, or you just find it easier to text prompt a chatbot and let it do for you, this can save a lot of time and headache actually. And as I mentioned with Midjourney before, I'm also not affiliated with ChatGPT. I just think that it's the best chatbot available on the market. When you already landed the concept in your head at least, and you started sketching up something, you might end up having a very different design vision than your colleagues. And this most likely have happened to you. I think at one point it happened to all of us that with a colleague we ended up with a very different vision, at least aesthetically. And what you can do is in Midjourney, you can blend together images, which means that Midjourney will try to find a middle ground between the two images, between the two designs. And it's actually very good at understanding the images. So you can see that on the left we have this formal Italian Renaissance garden type of space. And on the right, we have a much more contemporary, close to nature, meadow type vegetation. And you can blend these in Midjourney. And Midjourney pulls in the more formal, symmetric structure of the Italian Renaissance garden. And amazingly, it puts these more meadow type, close to nature, organic plantings in these very structured and symmetric shapes. And also, you might have landed the main geometry, the shapes, the design language that you want to use, but you have not made a decision on the exact style and the style of the plantings that you want to use. You might have created an image like this with Midjourney, or you have a hand sketch. It's very important that I show mostly photorealistic examples now, but you can also upload hand sketches and work with them, or very simple volume sketches from SketchUp or Rhino, and work with them in image generators. But you might have an image like this that you generated, and you want to try different styles. And you can see here that how the main structure of the image stayed. So we have this zigzag path. You see that the path is not exactly the same. We have these little gaps here, but that takes like 10 seconds to fix in Photoshop with the generative fill. And we also have the terrain intact, basically. But we have very different plantings in the images. Here we have more of a Mediterranean planting. Here we have a peat odorous style new perennial planting. And here a very lush tropical planting. And of course, we have the original image with the meadow style vegetation. So you can very quickly, this is the retexture mode in Midjourney, try out different styles and experiment a little bit before you dive deeper into the design process. And if we already talked about plants, we can talk a little bit about the planting palette. You might want to gain inspiration for a planting palette or visualize one. In the right and middle one, I just put a quite vague prompt into Midjourney. This is a disturbed industrial site that we want to renaturalize, create a park there, and this is a prairie style planting. And I just gave this quite vague prompts to Midjourney to get some images that can later be an inspiration for the planting. Note that when you create images like this, you might end up with fictional plants. So the plants that are present in the image might not exist or might not be identifiable, but you can get like kind of a generic idea about what kind of planting could you work with, and what kind of color combination and stuff like that you can go further with. And the very left one, I actually just prompted it to create a cottage garden planting exclusively with white flowers. This might also happen that you have a quite clear vision, but you can find a good reference image to visualize it, a little bit back to the first step, and you can create these images to visualize a certain type of color combination or style of planting. And when we talk about plantings and plants, I would like to mention Plant Selector, which is a custom GPT that I developed. You can scan the QR code in the bottom right corner and get access to it. It's free for anyone who has a ChatGPT registration. You can access it free through the GPT store. You can also just search for the name of it, and I put the link in the chat as well. The purpose of this custom GPT was to streamline and speed up the plant selection process. It's not automating it yet. You still need a landscape architect in the process, but if you are short on time, you haven't worked with plantings for a while, or you are working in an environment where you are not familiar with the native flora and the commonly used plants, you can use this tool to get some inspiration. How does it work? This tool asks you for 5 information: the location of your site, sun exposure, soil type, plant preferences, like if you want a shrub, a perennial, a tree, and if you have any special requirements, like do you want it to attract wildlife, do you want it to be drought tolerant or waterlogging tolerant, you can put all these like special requirements in the 5th field. And based on that, it will give you recommendation, usually with a short description of the species that fulfill the requirements that you set. And in this example, I asked for some plants in a site in Denmark, and actually the plants that it recommended very well fit the requirements that I said before. So you can try it for free. And the next step, when you are even further in the plant selection process and you already had some, you already selected some plants, you can also use image generators again to visualize certain plant combinations. Previously we put maybe photos of plants right beside each other to do this. But now we actually have the opportunity to create images where they are both or all of them are present. I see, Vijay, that you have a question. I would like to get back to that at the end of the session. If you want, you can also write the question in the chat, but we will have time for questions in the end, don't worry. So in this example, I created an image where Agave americana and Stipa tenuissima is combined in a planting. It's a quite striking combination with the stiff agaves and the soft, fluffy stipas. Another striking combination, Betula pendula with Imperata cylindrica red baron. And you can use it for more regular combinations as well, and add more plants to the mix. Here I visualized 3 different species together. Of course, the more species you describe, the higher the chance that the image generator is just going to omit one. So it doesn't always come out perfect. And in general, you usually have to prompt several times to get the best result. You can also create very unique color palettes with Midjourney to have a nice visual identity for the whole project. Of course, you can find these with Google or on Pinterest, but if you want to generate something more unique, or you don't want to spend a lot of time searching for one, you can also generate these kind of color palettes. And the thing that my clients are most excited about and what we work most often with is actually visualizations. As I mentioned in the beginning of this session, it is a very time or resource consuming process, and the demand is just growing for visualizations. Clients want to get visualizations earlier and earlier in the projects, and smaller and smaller, and in smaller and smaller projects do they also request visualizations. There are several visualization tools available by now. I would recommend using one called Chrome AI. Here, I would like to tell you that I have an affiliate program with Chrome AI, but this is not the reason why I'm recommending them. I honestly think after testing several tools that this is the best one when you work with outdoor environments and landscape architecture in general. This is the best one when it comes to plants and outdoor spaces. If you want to try and maybe sign up for it, I would really appreciate if you would use my affiliate link. I also sent that in the chat, and you can access it through the QR code that's right now on the screen. Thank you in advance. This is a 3D model that I created for a university project. And then for several days, I worked on this visualization actually in Photoshop. But with Chrome AI, I made this visualization within 2.5, 3 hours. I had to like reiterate a few times and correct a few little details. But I think to get this quality image within 2.5, 3 hours is extremely fast and very, very impressive. So I would highly recommend using this specific tool. And especially if you live in a country where there are 4 seasons, it's very important also to visualize or communicate in some way the seasonal changes and how your design is creating attractions throughout the seasons, and how does it facilitate the use of outdoor spaces throughout the seasons. And to create 4 visualizations of the same spot in 4 different seasons would be quite expensive or time consuming, but with the retexture mode in Midjourney, you can actually quite easily create and visualize the seasonal variation of the same project. So from this visualization, I made this image. Sorry, I did not update here. It should say Midjourney. For summer, autumn, and winter. So you can even visualize this kind of seasonal changes and communicate how your design facilitate different uses throughout the seasons, and what kind of visual attractions it also has throughout the seasons. And you can even visualize daytime variations. This is, of course, more relevant in a more urban context, in a square, for example, where there is possible nighttime uses. But I wanted to show you a green area because of a certain mistake that you should avoid. With the same mode, you can actually create a nighttime version of the image pretty easily. But one thing is very important to know when you're doing this kind of images is that it's good if you have some kind of lighting fixture in the image. Otherwise, the AI is going to make up lighting fixtures because it's not going to create a totally dark image. So it's going to put some random light sources here and there besides the moon. So if you are working with this, it's good if you work with an image that already has lighting fixtures in it. And if you go for more of a collage type of visualization, like if you have an image where you want to show how, like a photo, and you want to show on the photo, how do you want to change that park or square and improve it, you might go for this more collage visualizations, or if you are on a budget. And it's quite amazing how far the Photoshop generative fill tool, and in general the generative design tools, generative AI tools within Photoshop got. From this image, I did this within 3-5 minutes. It's quite striking difference in such a short time, and also it's a quite good quality image. You can even imagine if you used Photoshop to put all these features in, how long time it would have taken, and still the image quality would have been much, much lower. So these are the use cases I wanted to show today. As I mentioned before, this is an overview, and there are hundreds, if not thousands, more use cases. It's also very depending on your practice and what type of projects are you working in. But I hope that this little overview showed you the possibilities and also to somewhat the limitations of these tools. And it will help you start thinking about AI as a colleague, not as a competition. I know that a lot of people are worried about job replacement and how is this technology going to affect our industry. But I truly believe that if you work with AI, it can be your colleague and not your competition. And also, I think it's very important to make kind of a mindset shift because we designers like to think of ourselves as creators, and we are creators, so this is perfectly all right. But in the future, I think we have to shift from this creator mindset to more of a curator mindset, because we are not necessarily going to create every instances of visual material or any kind of material for our projects. But in many cases, we are going to prompt generative AI tools to create these materials, and we will have to like go through and control and select the best instances of these generations. So we will have to work more of a curator in the future. And I would like to thank you for your attention and taking your time for participating in this webinar. I hope it was very useful and you learned a lot from this and you got more interested in AI. As the next step in your AI journey, I would again encourage you to connect on LinkedIn. I share a lot of content regarding use cases and news in AI, in architecture and planning. Now we focused on landscape architecture, but my work is not limited to AI in landscape architecture. If you are representing a company, you are also very welcome to book a free initial consultation with me through my Calendly. In this free consultation, we can discuss where and how AI can help you in your work, not just in the design process, but also with innovation and administration, becoming more efficient and also maybe becoming more creative on the way. So again, if you represent a company, then please feel free to book a free initial consultation with me. You can learn more about my company and my services on luminarkis.com. And if you don't use LinkedIn, but you would like to reach out, discuss something, you have a proposal, a collaboration idea, feel free to write to me at robert@luminarkis.com. And now we have some time for questions. Vijay, I can see that you raised your hand. Do you have any questions? Okay, Vijay is not raising his hand any longer. Does anybody else have any questions, reflections on today's session? You're also very welcome to write in the chat if you feel more comfortable with that or if you don't have a mic. I will wait a little bit, and if there is no questions, then I will just say goodbye. I just got some great feedback from Scott. He said, great presentation, thank you. Rebecca also wrote, thank you for an interesting presentation. Thank you guys for taking part. Thank you, Jose, as well. And if in the future, later you realize that you have some question or interesting reflection, please feel free to reach out to me, both on LinkedIn or via my email. Thank you, everyone. Now we are getting a lot of messages in the chat. I would like to say thank you to Helen, Sagdana, Vijay, and Jürgen as well. And since it seems like there are no questions, I would like to thank you again, everyone, for participating. And I hope we meet along your AI implementation journey later on. And have a nice afternoon or evening, whatever time zone you are in. And I want to say one more thing. Soon I'm going to host also a webinar about visualization processes with AI within landscape architecture. So if you want to learn more about how you can use Midjourney and Chrome AI to create visualizations for landscape architecture projects specifically, then stay tuned. I will soon post about that and you can register. Thank you. Goodbye.